Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and for this video I'm gonna show you how I render my work with hatching techniques and how I pair it with block inking. Basically, hatching is a technique used to add gradients and depth in the form of texture. I use two types of hatching. It's called the cross hatching and the parallel hatching. It is a great way to grade down from a block of ink. Here's an example. Imagine you have a sphere rendered in monochrome like this one, but smooth gradients from dark to light isn't your art style, and you prefer the more edgy comic style renders. The way comic artists do it is by using the hatching technique. Parallel hatching are just lines drawn side by side each other, while cross hatching are lines drawn in an opposite angle or in an opposite direction. The way it works is the more lines, or in this case hatches, you put in, the more it will darken, and vice versa. The lesser the hatches, the lighter it will look. Most of the comic artists use block inking to add more contrast to the gradient. One tip to make it even more smoother is to increase the spaces in between the lines as it go farther along, while making the lines smaller. My second tip is to follow the form of your basic shape. So if you have a circle and want it to make it look like a sphere, you have to curve the hatches so it will add extra information about the form of the figure. As you can see here, this part suggests that it has volume and its shape is like this, while the lower part looks flat. My third tip is to draw your base hatches with roots. What do I mean by that? It's something like this. Make the base ends heavier, like how a strand of hair will look like according to that one shampoo commercial. Just make sure that you will put the roots on the side where the thick lines are supposed to be, because remember that we are using hatches to grade. This will also increase the depth of the lines and add more contrast when you can't block it in. You don't need to make the hatches cross all the time, it will definitely be up to your art style. But remember that the more lines you put in, the heavier and darker it will look like. So be careful. Here are some examples of how I use the technique. For this, I'm gonna render it in pencil, in pen, and in a regular ballpoint pen to let you know that you don't need fancy art materials for you to make quality artworks. The best tool is the one you have in your pencil case. Notice that I use cross hatching on the eyebrows because I want to capture the strands of hair, and mainly because eyebrows should be dark. And as I've said, the more hatches you put in, the darker it will appear. We want to keep particular details of the face to be rendered lightly as possible, unless you're going for a dramatic effect where the cat shadow is very prominent to give a vibe of mystery, anger, or revenge. Then in those cases, you may want to use block inking and have that crisp edges that will define specific features. Now let's move on to using the hatching technique to render a muscular form. I will be rendering an arm muscle, particularly since it has a lot of shapes in varying size, and I always find it fun to render. Remember the blob that we are rendering a tad earlier? You can use the same logic of rendering in this. If you notice, I blocked in those parts where I know the hard shadows will be, and then feathered it out with a parallel hatching to help the viewer's eyes to ease in, ease out, ease in, ease out. And for the last example, let's render a tree. Hatching isn't only good for rendering muscles and figures, but it is also good for rendering backgrounds. In here, I am just hatching in following the forms of the tree, but randomly. You'll see that there's nothing special with what I'm doing. Everyone can do this basically. As you can see, you may also render it this way. The simpler your hatches is, the softer it will seem. It's a break from my usual content, but I am brewing something really awesome for you guys. So hit that notification bell if you haven't yet. And if you're new to my channel, please click that subscribe button as it will greatly help me to fund my future artworks. Dun 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 dun! And we are done. If you think that I should do more tutorials like this, or if you want me to share more of my process in depth, or if you want to share yours, let me know in the comments down below. So I guess that's it for today. I hope you learned something from me. Again, this is Kim Kim Kim. Pick up your pencils and get better at your art, one drawing at a time. Peace.